right, Brian here with BPS Customs S-Tech. Just wanted to give a quick overview of a new project I've been working on. This is an X99 system. It actually started out as a client build. This was actually client build 31. What happened was the client had an unfortunate financial situation come up as I was in the middle of this build, getting the parts, starting to put things together, water blocks, all that good stuff. And what we did was we actually made a deal where I got to keep the system, and he didn't owe me anything for the labor that I had put in, and I actually ended up paying him a little bit on top, just to kind of even things out a little bit. But when the system became mine, I decided that I was kind of going to go all out on this. So we went with some cables from Sanctum Sleeving. We went with a full custom hardline water cooling loop. Every water cooling part in this system is from EK. I have absolutely nothing against other water cooling companies, but EK, I've worked with EK for a while now. Their customer service is awesome, and the quality of their products is top notch. So I certainly recommend them. And when I have a chance to work with them and to use their products, I absolutely do it. And in this case, they had everything I need, so every water cooling component in the system is EK. The processor is a 5820K, sitting in an Asus X99 Sabertooth motherboard. The GPUs are two MSI 980 Ti's. The power supply is a Corsair HXI 850i Platinum, 80 plus Platinum. There are two drives in here. There's a Samsung 500 gigabyte 850 Evo. Also, there's a mass storage drive sitting in the back. That's an actual hard drive that just kind of stores video, save game data, stuff like that. The RAM, so the RAM I went a little crazy with. That is 64 gigs of G.Skill DDR4. The reason why there's so much RAM in the system is because honestly, I wanted it to be a showpiece. I wanted this to be aesthetically pleasing. 8 fully populated DIMM slots just looks awesome. And so I ended up doing it. It cost a little bit more than I wanted to spend on RAM, and it's entirely unnecessary. Even when I'm doing video rendering, I do not need 64 gigs of RAM. But there it is, it's in the system. So I just wanted to talk about a couple things that came up while I was putting this system together. The first thing is that when I was bleeding this loop, I actually had a huge issue with water not passing through both video cards equally. I build loops in serial for the most part when I'm using an SLI setup, just because it distributes the fluid more evenly. The cards do get cooled better with a serial. With a parallel configuration, and that's what this is here. This is parallel. But the problem is you have to make sure that the flow is even through both sides of the tubing. What happened was I had a huge air bubble that basically went from here across and down and to about here. It jammed up this whole side. No matter what I did, I could not get coolant to pass through that side of the loop. I wanted to. I was shaking it, trying to tilt it different ways, trying to get the fluid to move around, trying to get the air to pass through so that it would go up to the pump, it would collect in the reservoir, and then you'd have an air bubble at the top, which you could then refill with more coolant. But it just wouldn't move. So what I ended up doing, and I'm not entirely sure that I recommend this for everybody, but it did certainly serve my purpose. When you have air collecting in the system, you have to relieve the pressure some way. You have to relieve the air pressure. Most of the time, the way that works is that it does pass through the system and collects in the reservoir and can be released at the top of the reservoir once the cap is taken off. Air in a system is nothing but empty space where coolant cannot cool the components as it is supposed to, because the coolant is what's collecting the heat, taking it away from the components, and transferring it to the radiators. So without the contact of the coolant to your components, you could bake your video card. And that's unfortunately what ended up happening when I turned the system on. I did notice that there was no coolant on this side, but I figured by cycling the pump a couple times, I could force air through the system. So when it was running for a little bit, I turned the fans on max, the fan controller on max, which also does control the pump, and it wasn't moving the air bubble. And as a result, this card got up to 91 degrees and just completely started thermal throttling. Just from normal operation. I wasn't doing anything special. I wasn't stressing it or anything like that. But I mean, it had a little bit of load just from playing a YouTube video or something like that. So what I did was I stuffed this whole area full of paper towels. And as you can see on the top here, there is a plug. There's also a plug down here. It's to channel the coolant the way it's supposed to go. But you can remove the plug. So I jammed paper towels in and around this area. I took an appropriately sized Allen key, put it in the plug, did a quick unscrew, rescrew, basically. So it unscrewed enough where the air pressure was relieved and the air came right out. The whole area then filled with fluid immediately, and a little bit started leaking out because I was able to close it so quickly. But I had the paper towels there, so I was able to just kind of wipe it off. It kind of just stayed right on top of this right here, so it wasn't really a big deal at all. That was something that was, it was an interesting solution to a problem that I had faced before that never really needed that kind of creativity to fix. Everything else in the system really came together very nicely. I had to do a little, I had to be a little creative with the radiator solution up top, because with this case, this is a Fantex Evolve ATX, which is a fantastic case. I love it. This case, if you put fans up top, there's no space above the case to put above this rail here to mount fans. So if you're going to have fans up top with a radiator, they're going to extend way down, and you're going to cover a good portion of the top of your RAM. You're going to cover the top portion. You could even cover some of the post for the mounting for the CPU block. You're going to cover this nifty Sanctum sleeving cable set, and the case is going to get real cramped real fast. So what I actually did was I had to come up with some kind of creative solution, and I'm going to take the camera off the mount right now just so I could kind of show what was done. So sorry for the shakiness. All right. So what I did was these are fans that I actually had showed off in a prior video. These are the Scythe Slipstream fans, and they are tiny. They are super thin. Standard fans are 25 millimeters. These are, I believe, 12. And what I was able to do was mount these inside of these structural rails that hold the case together, and then on top of the sliding radiator mount. So these fans are actually not mounted directly to the radiator, but they are pressed up against the radiator mount, and from the underside, the radiator is pressed up against the radiator mount as well. So this kind of, the fan and the radiator basically sandwich the radiator mount, and any air that is flowing through or being forced one way or another by the fans will flow through the radiator. So of course that does mean that I had to be creative with the mounting solution. How do you mount these fans underneath these structural rails? Well, I had to drill. So I drilled a couple holes here, here, and then, you know, over here I was able to access the screws without having to drill. But you know, in the process, I did kind of take some paint off of this, but this is entirely covered. Yeah, because I had to drill here as well. This is entirely covered by the top of the case when it is mounted. So you don't see any of these scratches. You don't see the holes, and you know, you don't see these ugly cables coming off the backs of the fans. But all in all, this came together really nicely. I'm super happy that I was able to find a solution, a way to mount these fans and push air through this radiator without having to take up a huge amount of space in the inside of the case. You'll also notice that there is an NZXT Hue Plus system in here. Right now I have it all red. I mean, I could switch that. It's not, I mean, it's super easy to do. But I kind of like the red theme. I mean, the coolant is red. I had Joe from Sanctum make the cables into it like kind of a red theme, so it's, you know, red, black, and a couple different shades of gray. And as you can see in here, same theme on the 24-pin cables as well. But here's, I guess, a quick tour, quick close-up of the inside of the case. It's a Corsair SP120. And here are the two 9080 Ti's. But this project came out fantastic, and as of now, the scores that I'm getting, just running some basic benchmarks, are out of this world. This X99 system, you know, really destroys benchmarking programs like the physics score on Firestrike Ultra and Asus RealBench and all those. I'm getting crazy high scores with this system. But this video is now almost 13 minutes long, and that's entirely unacceptable for a video where I haven't really said all that much. I will be doing more stuff with this system in the future. You know, if you want to hear about something in particular, hear me talk about anything that I did as far as how I built this or what techniques I used, how I bend the tubes, want to hear more about water cooling, leave a comment and I could certainly talk about that at a later time. Next video I do is honestly probably going to be about this. This is my new test bench, and it was extraordinarily difficult to put together. So if you want to hear about that, tune into my next video. So that's it for now. My office is a giant mess because I'm still kind of in the process of putting this back together. But this is Brian, BPS Customs, signing out. Thanks for watching.